everybody. I'm Jana Fritz. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Michigan Soybean. Today we are here at the Hasnick Farm in Springport, Michigan. I'd like to introduce Andrew Hasnick. Andrew, thanks for joining us on our new show. We're calling it Soybean Shoptalk. Obviously we're here in your shop and wanted to come down and talk to you and the farm about what you're doing with innovative measures with cover crops. So first, tell us a little bit about the farm.
So yeah, the farm was started back in the day by my grandpa and uncle. They were the original Hasnick brothers. Now it's my dad, my brother, and myself, and we've got two other hired guys, and we farm about 5,000 acres of corn, wheat, soybeans, and canola. We're 100% no-till, and we try and get a cover crop or a living crop on every acre going into winter. So.
Outstanding. So cover crops are a huge topic right now, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of farmers wondering how they can get involved with cover crops. Obviously, the climate conversation is ramping up, and cover crops are a great means to sequester carbon, and we don't know how that's all going to play out in our industry, right? But how did you first get started in cover crops?
Well, Dad, back in the 80s, he started no-tilling a few farms here and there. Neighbors and landowners both thought he was kind of crazy, you know, that's not what you did back then. And eventually, every acre on the farm got to be no-tilled. And it was about 2013 or 14, we started playing around with a little bit of cover crops, and now we're full-blown no-till cover crop farm.
Awesome, awesome. So it's progressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Started in the 80s, you came on board, and as the whole farm has progressed, what have you seen from adding these cover crops? How have your soils improved? What's the measurable for you guys on the Hasnick farm?
Overall, it's just the quality of the soil, really. You walk into a field and put a spade in the ground in a field that has a full mix of diversified cover crops in it, and the soil quality is just totally different. It has more tilth. It smells like soil where you go into the woods and just grab a handful of that. It smells like that. We've also seen a 1% increase in organic matter since we've started doing cover crops. It's obviously taken quite a while. It's not a 1 year or 2 year experience and you're going to see those results. We started off slow, a little rye between the corn rows. And after that, it was just, you know, let's try everything we can, incorporate cover crops wherever we can.
Yeah.
And it's just grown from there.
Outstanding. Okay. So, and what are you using for cover crops, right? You mentioned rye,
yeah.
Wheat. What is your mix? What are you putting out there? Does it reflect the crop that it follows? What's the practice on the farm?
Yeah. So after some experimenting, figuring out, you know, what's most cost effective, what plant, seed size, cost of seed per square foot, stuff like that. We've narrowed it down. After our wheat and canola crops, we put in a 15-way species mix that includes, I don't know if I can remember all of them off the top of my head, but Phacelia, sun hemp, flax, Austrian peas, forage peas, red clover, crimson clover, sunflowers, radishes, rapeseed. I think I got quite a few of them. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said earlier, going through the corn, we have a high boy seeder, a Haggie, that we converted to a dry system. Okay. So we can blow rye between the corn rows.
Okay.
And then, so the bean planter will plant into that the following year. And then the corn planter follows the wheat and canola ground into the 15-way species mix. So.
Awesome. Okay. And everything's continuous green, or are we killing before we're planting before certain crops? Are we?
No, it's continuous green. We always plant green. It's not to say, you know, there's not going to be a time where we have to go in maybe a couple days earlier or something and spray it down before we plant if there's weather patterns and whatnot like that. That can throw a curveball in it, but 95% of the time we try to plant green whenever we can, and that's been a a benefit to the planters for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Have you had to make adjustments to the planters? Obviously, you're planting green. It's not quite as, quite the same scenario as a tilled field. So over time, what adjustments have you made to your planter to better establish your plant stand?
So in the beginning, when we really were getting heavy into no-till, it takes a lot of downforce quite a bit when you no-till and when you spray and kill off all the living roots and whatnot that actually break up the soil somewhat and make it more mellow. So when I'm going through the field with the corn planter, which this is our corn planter, we have hydraulic downforce. Can't probably see it, but there's a cylinder up there. Hydraulic row cleaners. And if you're gonna do no-till, hydraulic downforce is the way to go. You get the most force to get the seed in the ground where it needs to be. But once we started planting green, one of the main things I noticed was less downforce. It takes, a couple 100 pounds less applied downforce to get the seed at the proper depth. So if you're going to be planting green, you may not need the hydraulic downforce. If you're just doing no-till, I'd highly recommend hydraulic downforce is the way to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Any changes to soybean planting, right? I think when you're planting into rye, when you're planting into something a little thicker, any changes that you've made for soybean planting?
Yep. So if you're not familiar with them, we use the Dawn ZRX roller crimpers on the bean planter. It's kind of hard to imagine if you can't see one, but it's basically just a roller crimper that will mount right here where your row cleaners do.
Okay.
And as you're planting, they go along, spin same direction as the planter and crimp that rye down. And there's two discs on the front of it that kind of separate the rye. And then those crimpers come in, lay it down nice and flat, have a mat of rye on the ground for weed suppression, moisture retention, and so that's been the main difference in planting soybeans that we've had to overcome.
Okay. How about planting populations on your soybeans? Anything be increased or decreased or anything with the changes with cover crops or no-till?
Yeah, we've increased or decreased. Sorry, we've decreased our soybean populations significantly. Okay. And that's seed savings and seed cost savings, so that's helped quite a bit. Yeah,
awesome. So you bring up savings, right?
Yeah.
That's another question for all of our farmers. They want to know what's cover crops going to gain? Are they going to save money in one regard or gain yield in another? What's been the experience? How has it improved your bottom line? What's it done for the money side of the business?
So it has helped us. One example I can provide in 2018 when we all got rained out, we had a lot of prevent plant acreage.
Yep.
And that was a good experience for us to just go in, get a lot of acres to a thick cover crop, planting into it in 2019. The stand was so much better than beforehand. And then that was for corn. I'm the corn planter. I know it's a soybean soybean topic, but the example for soybeans is I planted probably 30 acres of a 60-acre field of corn.
Yep.
And the other 30 acres was prevent plant.
Yep.
So we went in there with the mix. The next year we plant beans there.
Okay.
And you could stand at the line where I stopped planting and where the corn was and where the cover crop was.
Yeah.
And it was night and day. Just the beans where the cover crop were
a
lot healthier. Just a better stand in general.
Great.
Stayed greener a little longer, which may not necessarily be the best thing when you're trying to get them run, but it indicated a healthier plant for sure.
Awesome.
Also, as far as savings go, no-till and cover crops, it's kind of a wash. So instead of a tillage pass, you may have a sprayer pass to kill the cover crop off. So fuel savings are definitely there. It costs less fuel, or takes less fuel to run a sprayer than it does to run a 450 horse tractor pulling a chisel plow through the ground.
Yep. Awesome. So speaking of then sprayer passes, any challenges with cover crops and resistant weeds, right? That's another big topic. We've had a number of years here recently in Michigan that mare's tail's gotten out of control.
Yeah.
What have you seen from a cover crop perspective in weed control?
Cover crops definitely help in that aspect. You're going to have a thick mat of vegetation on the ground. Definitely makes it harder for the weeds to come up. That mat also helps with soil moisture, so it's going to improve your cash crop's ability to come up, get out of the ground. It's going to have moisture there to grow, outrun the weeds. As far as mare's tail goes, wherever we have a cover crop, the mare's tail populations are drastically less.
Great.
Looking at a neighbor's field where, you know, their conventional tillage, burned down, everything, kill it all dead, they still have mare's tail coming back. So.
Gotcha. Good. All right, and then the last question in terms of rounding out this cycle, right? Harvest time.
Yeah.
When you get to harvest, does the cover crop impede anything with harvest? Do you have a lot of fodder going through the combine? Has that proven any issues there? Anything at the harvest time that, you know, cover crops have either improved upon or has been a challenge for the farm?
No, there haven't been any challenges as far as harvest time, really. So when we go in at dry down in the corn with the seeder and blow the rye down, so come harvest time, you know, the rye's only up about this far. There's no challenge there.
Good.
As far as beans go, the wheat and the canola get planted after beans. And there's no cover crop in the wheat or the canola when we do that. The cover crop comes in a couple weeks after those are harvested. So there's no impacts to harvest really.
Okay.
Unless you're trying to do 2 crops at once, and wheat and soybeans. But
there are some out there doing a relay crop. That's the next phase maybe, but
I don't think we're headed in that direction.
Okay, gotcha. Well, good. So just to wrap it up, what advice would you give to a farmer who is, you know, interested in playing around with cover crops? And is it something that you can even play around with, or do we need a more distinct plan? What recommendation would you give to friends and neighbors who wanted to get more involved?
Just do your research. And like you said, play around with it at first. You know, throw some stuff out there that you think might work. Talk to local people that are doing it. Start small. Don't go off and plant something on a 500-acre scale the first time you do it, for sure. That's a recipe for disaster. And I mean, start small and go from there. So.
Great. Well, Andrew, thank you for your time. Thanks for welcoming us to your farm.
Thanks for coming down.
Thanks for tuning in to our Soybean Shop Talk. If you or a family, friend, neighbor, other soybean farmer is doing something innovative on your farm, let the Michigan Soybean office know, and we'll get you featured on a future episode of Soybean Shop Talk. Thank you.